have a spare agenda?
Doesn't exist today, has never existed.
It's the catch-all, you know,
Didn't
like,
make any difference to them.
how are you
Agenda.
always going for something?
For the meeting?
Yeah.
And then
Oh, thank you.
it's been delayed again.
Did you not get one?
Well, I have one now. And I was happy to read last month.
Oh, yeah, no, that's.
But it had all this stuff about President Reynolds, and so. We ready? Okay. All right, I'd like to call the Tuesday, February 11th meeting of the Coastside County Water Board to order. All right, would you like to do the Pledge of Allegiance? My pleasure.
Could we do roll call first?
But we aren't sworn in without giving our Pledge of Allegiance.
I'm just following the agenda.
Yeah, some people follow the agenda.
Number one.
Yeah.
Director Glassberg?
Here.
Vice President Michelson?
Here.
Director Flint?
Here?
Director Coverdale is absent. President Reynolds?
Here.
Now item 2. Yeah. Hand over your heart, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go USA.
Do we have any public comments? No public comment, we'll move on. Do we have any questions or removals from the consent calendar? Chris?
No, I was comfortable with it.
Not for me.
Okay, and who approved the claims this week? Me.
You did.
All right,
Do you trust that?
I did, I actually looked at it. All right, so we need a motion to accept the consent calendar.
I move we approve the consent calendar as submitted.
I'll second that.
All right. Can we have an aye count? Is that okay? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Ayes have it.
Yep. Chris, do you have any meetings attended or director's comments?
Yeah, although I did see, Dave will have the opportunity later on in the meeting to discuss or give us a quick briefing on our meeting with Nicole Sankula from Bosca. Thought it was very, very productive, and it was kind of sworn to secrecy, so I can't tell anybody about it. Maybe Dave can tell you a little bit, but I can tell one director if anyone's interested. But they are doing good work. I'll chime in more when Dave gives his briefing. Thanks.
Perfect.
And I did go to a Bosca meeting, but things are evolving so fast. You know, certainly, you know, the most recent meeting I was at, it hadn't rained. Well, it's rained since. So it's anything I learned there is already a little stale, and it will kind of come up during the meeting. And certainly, Kathleen will give us a much more current assessment. Thank you.
Nothing to report?
I was able to sit in on a presentation on the drought impacts with Bay Area Water Utilities, who the State Water Project is asking to sign waivers that they will accept water above a salinity level that they would normally receive, because the salt is being drawn up by the Bay Delta pumps passed into the intake. And that was the first I'd heard of that. So that was startling to find.
What kind of numbers?
You know, they weren't gonna know until they pumped, and it depended on the tide.
Wow.
Whether they pumped at high tide or low tide. And so they were coordinating the pump, and they were going to wheel it because some of the districts didn't want that salinity, so they would shut down their pumps and not pull while the higher salinity water went past their
So
system.
you wouldn't need to salt your noodle water then.
No. So it was a stunning bit of reality to sort of be here, and some of our other water utilities are facing that their intakes are directly affected by the salinity in the delta. So that was a sobering half-day meeting. That was it, and then yeah, that's it. So no other comments. All right. Dave, do you want to lead us in the general business?
Okay, item A is discussion of voluntary 10% reduction in water consumption. I'll let Kathleen talk about that.
So, the recent storms that have been attributed to the Pineapple Express have given us, a little bit of breathing room, but the storms really haven't brought us back up to any sort of normal precipitation amounts. And so locally, probably with these recent storms, we're up to maybe 40% to 45% of normal for the year to date for precipitation. Obviously north of San Francisco, they got a lot more, so they're doing well. So that basically brings us to staff's request that the board authorize a request for voluntary 10% reduction in water consumption by all district customers. The message that customers would, the message to customers would be that voluntary conservation is the best way to avoid or delay mandatory water restrictions, and that should the dry weather conditions continue through 2014. So the water year doesn't end until September 30th, 2014. And you'll notice in the staff report that I have a public message, and I guess basically we want to say that's not that message could change, the meaning won't change, but depending on the outreach materials that it's in, there could be less wording or more wording, but it's not going to specifically be that wording. So does that kind of get me out of having to put that wording into if the board can modify that and say?
Sure, I'm happy to comment a little bit. Your general manager and I had a discussion earlier this morning about the specific wording that's in here and how this recommendation was worded. And so we suggested that when it comes for board action, if the board's going to take action, that the wording be a little more flexible so that staff has a little bit of discretion to not use this exact wording. For example, what Dave and I were talking a little bit about was recharacterizing the 2 years as the water years, and then specifying that the beginning of the third water year, which started in October, was historically low as well, and working some of that language into that wording as well. And we didn't come up with the exact wording, so we thought we'd just share with the board that concept, and if the board wanted to go forward with this recommendation, provide the general manager some flexibility to keep the same substance, the same meaning, concepts, but the wording could change a little bit if the board's comfortable with that.
So so I just want to. So there have been two major actions that have prompted staff to ask for the 10% reduction at this time. One is the governor's proclamation about the drought state of emergency for the state of California, and also with the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission's request for 10% voluntary water reductions for all the users on the Hetch Hetchy Regional Water System. And so the governor's proclamation is attached to your staff report if you wanted to read that, and also the press release from San Francisco is attachment B for this staff report that explains their goals in requesting the system-wide reduction in water consumption by 10%. So if the board approves the request to ask for a 10% voluntary cutback in water consumption, the district will implement an outreach program, and it'll mainly be focused on our residential customers. And the present residential per capita consumption is about 67 gallons per day per person. So we would be trying to get that down to 60 gallons per day per person. And I have, in my staff report, I kind of have a little table that shows how they would meet that requirement. The commercial customers are a little more difficult to do outreach for, but a lot of the messaging that we would use for residential would also apply to commercial, because we would be talking about high efficiency toilets, for more efficient irrigation practices, and checking for leaks. We kind of have those priorities for helping people try to get their consumption down. And I'm estimating that for the next like 4 to 5 months, it would probably cost us an extra $5,000 in outreach campaigns, mainly like putting advertisements in the Half Moon Bay Review and things like that. So if you have any questions for me, I could answer them for you at this time.
We'd put this in place immediately.
Yes, as soon as if the board approves it, we could implement it immediately.
Through the chair, would we get a chance to look at some of the outreach materials before they go out, or would we be updated on what the actual package of public outreach would entail?
Yeah, if you have we could arrange that if you wanted to get a chance to see what we create. I mean, sometimes it's a pretty short time frame because to meet deadlines, like if it's going to go into the review and things like that. But we could definitely share that with the board if they're
Great.
interested.
Is there anything coming from Bosco? Any templates for outreach, anything like that?
No, the last drought we had, that was like from 2007 to 2009, we did get a lot of outreach materials from both SFPC via Bosca, and we haven't had that yet, so I'm not sure what the delay is. Usually they're pretty good.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised, because you'd think that the 26 agencies along with SFPC would kind of like to stay somewhat in sync with the message, as opposed to getting mixed message out there.
Right. And there is some confusion because every water agency's really, there's different messaging from each water agency across the state. And the governor asking for 20%, but that San Francisco's 10%. I have contacted Aqua, and I've requested if they have any sort of artwork or images that I could use to help design my outreach. I'd appreciate it, and they've said they will get that to me.
The restaurant owner did ask me about the little table tents. For the
Yes, and
restaurants.
we've had quite a few requests for the table tent, so we've been delivering those as people request them.
Good, thank you.
I also have some questions about the outreach. The staff report does list certain things that people can focus on. But those tend to be things that would relate to if you're living in a home where not everything's as efficient as it should be. You've got a leaky faucet, or you've got valves that are leaking, or the kinds of things you've listed here. That's fine if you have those problems, but if your house is shipshape and you don't have those problems and you still want to save 10%, you might not necessarily know some good ways to do that. And I thought that the San Francisco attachment B had some good ideas on the back. They had like 10, here's some water saving tips that can be easily implemented today, and they list 10 different ways of saving the water.
So, yeah, the behavioral type.
Yeah, in other words, if I'm a user, if I'm a customer, and I get a letter saying, we want you to voluntarily save 10% of your water usage. First of all, I don't even know how much water I'm using. Actually, I do, because I got my bill today and I did the math on it. But up until this afternoon when I got my mail, I wouldn't even have known how much water I use.
Right, yes.
And much less, what are some things that I can do that would be helpful? I remember back in the 70s when we went through this in Southern California, we were throwing bricks in our toilet tanks. I mean, things like that. Saving water while we were waiting for the hot water to come through, having a bucket there that we could save the cold water coming in so we could use it to water plants. Just, I don't know, whatever the different ideas might be. I think we're going to have to help people see those ideas.
Right. We tend to emphasize at first like changing your toilets, things that don't require behavioral changes, and then as the water shortage conditions worsen, then we definitely emphasize more the behavioral issues. But I could definitely add some of those behavioral type of
I don't know how pervasive leaky toilets are, or I mean,
very pervasive.
really, people don't know that it's happening in their own home.
No, because there's,
It makes me crazy.
Yeah,
Just listening to it would make me nuts.
not all leaks, not all of them that you can hear.
Yeah,
So, no, toilets, there's been estimates up to 10% of all toilets are leaking at any one time.
wow.
Yeah, so toilets definitely are the number one source of leaks within a residential user. And, it's, there's a lot of education behind that and how to identify leaks, and we do have materials to help people identify and test, learn how to test to see if their toilet's leaking, if they can't hear it.
Another question I have, and it just dawned on me, so if we give them some of those behavioral hints that people can choose to do or not, we may find that they will save more than 10%. But then that prompts me to wonder if we then end up with, I know you don't like the word rationing, but it's the word I remember,
Yeah.
mandatory reductions.
rationing.
If we end up with mandatory reductions, is there a way of accounting for the voluntary reductions that people have already done, or do we end up going off of, well, on this date you were using this much, and so now we want a 20% reduction from that? In other words, not compounding it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
That's a really good question about how we're going to allocate water if we go into mandatory rationing. Why don't you?
Well, in our water shortage contingency plan, our preferred method for residential customers of doing a reduction, if we're in mandatory rationing or curtailment, is to give them a budget or an allocation. So it's not we don't tell every customer they must reduce 10% or 20% or whatever, because it punishes those who've already conserved or low water users. So the idea is that it would be a per person allocation, and that per household, and they would get a budget depending on how severe the cutbacks are.
Okay. And then with opportunities for appeals under unusual circumstances or something? I mean,
Of course, there can always be appeals. Again, our priority once we go into mandatory rationing is health and safety. So, so the appeals, because you want to maintain your lawn, isn't necessarily gonna meet that threshold of health and safety. But if we don't have the correct number of people per your household, that can be corrected. And if there's some sort of special health needs that a household has, we can make accommodations for that also. So that will be we've anticipated that will be a normal course of business if we went into mandatory rationing, as having to deal with all the appeals and special needs.
But people should understand that our allocations for residential users, which represent about 60% of our use and our revenue, won't be based on some period of use. So there's no incentive for somebody to use more in anticipation of rationing that would, affect their allocation. So there should be no incentive for residential users, at least, to game the system by using more during this. We hope we don't have to go to mandatory allocations, but if the drought continues, that might be a possibility. On the commercial side, though, we will be using reduction from use during a base period. But the base period, we haven't really specified the base period. It should be far enough back that again, we wouldn't be providing an incentive now for people to use more water.
Yeah, you typically would pick a base period from a normal water year. So you usually have, for us, we would have to go back maybe 3 years.
It's getting harder to find those.
Yeah.
Normal
Yeah.
water years.
And yet the last suggestion that I would have, and maybe something you would automatically do, I haven't seen enough of our community outreach documents to know, but I would hope that whatever goes out to people would really be colorful and really easy to read. not a lot of words. You know, just the basics. This is what we're doing, this is what we're asking you to do, and here are some ways that you can do it.
Yeah.
Not a lot, I mean, the visual figure ground, because people throw everything away. I do. I throw most of my mail in the trash before I get it out of my post office. Right after I go from the post office box to the trash can in the post office and dump most of it.
Yeah, it's one of our biggest challenges is how to reach our customers because, you know, we do the same thing. We get bills and the bill stuffers, we don't even look, they're in the recycle bin really quickly. So it is a challenge. It's one of the reasons why we've gone to the e-newsletter, constant contact format, hoping that you know, it just gives another option for people who don't get paper bills. If they sign up for our newsletter, they can get that kind of information that way. But you know, we'll have to look at direct mailings versus bill stuffers and advertisements in newspapers.
Or maybe the review will do a story rather than an advertisement. Maybe they'll do a story on it, because then the reporter can list some of those ways.
Yes.
So that's for those who take the paper.
Right, definitely, yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, an advertisement gets us the color and the graphics that catch people's eyes. So definitely. So yeah, those are very good ideas. Okay.
Thank you, much appreciated. Do we have any other discussion of the, do we have a motion for this?
I'll move that we proceed with the language with flexibility for Mr. Dixon and Kathleen to put the appropriate language in with the same content for a 10% voluntary reduction.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. You want to aye or do you want to count?
Let's do roll call. Director Glassford,
Aye.
Vice President Michelson.
Yes.
Director Flint.
Aye.
Director Coverdale is absent. President
Aye.
Reynolds. Thank you.
Okay, continuing with the theme of water shortage. If we go into mandatory allocations, we'll have two principal challenges. One is to control demand within the amount of water we're allocated. And the other is to keep the district financially whole in a time when we'll be deliberately reducing the amount of water our customers buy. And there are a number that keeping the district whole is not a simple matter of just raising our rates. And I have listed some of the things from the proposal we've gotten about developing drought rates that are sort of critical aspects of what drought rates need to do. And it's a challenge to keep the money coming in when our customers are using less water. Nobody's going to be happy about it, but it's our responsibility to keep the district financially viable, and having even a 10% voluntary reduction is a pretty significant hit to district revenue, on which all of our programs depend, capital and otherwise. The other thing that we'll experience during mandatory allocations is there'll be an excess use charge imposed by San Francisco. In the last allocation, I think the excess use charges ranged up to up to 7 times the basic wholesale rate. So we pay about $3 per 100 cubic feet to San Francisco, or that'll be our new rate. The excess use charge for going over the allocation we have would be, if they used a similar approach, would be could get up to $20. So those numbers add up extremely quickly if we go over the allocation, and depending on what the level of emergency that San Francisco may declare is, the cutbacks could be pretty significant. We just got today from Bosca their sort of recalculation of the allocations under the Tier 2 agreement. We went through last time some of the steps that we go through. If San Francisco declares water shortage emergency and reduces the total supply available. So there's the Tier 1 and the Tier 2 agreement. Bosca has just redone this complicated model for Tier 2 allocations, And in the event that San Francisco had to cut supply back by 20%, they say, okay, the overall supply is cut back 20%, the district would experience a cutback of about 33%. So that's quite, and that's all the mechanics of these allocation schemes, but that's quite a cutback. The number that they had in the spreadsheet for our district was, if there were 20% cutback by San Francisco, our maximum supply would be 1.44 million gallons a day. That's about 600,000 gallons a day less than our customers are using right now. So achieving that level of cutback would be very challenging. So 33% cutback we would have to achieve in order to avoid excess use charges, 33% reduction in revenue. So we have to really pay attention to a system of rates that would ensure that that we get enough money from our customers to keep running the district. Our costs are not highly variable; they're about 80% fixed. So when our customers' use goes down 30%, we don't save 30% of the expenses associated with delivering water. So I've listed some of the things that drought rates need to do. This is not a simple exercise. We need an expert consultant to help us with this effort, and we solicited proposals from two such consultants, Bartle Wells and HF&H, both highly qualified. We interviewed both firms, and we have hired Bartle Wells in the past. We'll probably use them in the future for certain things, but we felt that for this particular effort, John Farnkoff, whom we haven't used before, would be a good choice. If you've looked at their statement of qualifications, you can see that they're highly qualified. John is here tonight to answer any questions the board might have. He's not here with a presentation about drought rates. We've built into our scope and our schedule a couple of work sessions with the board at which we'll go into some detail about how drought rates work and what they're designed to do. So there will be significant, the board will have significant opportunity to really delve into this issue. This is a time and materials contract, and the estimate is about $35,000. So the staff is recommending that the board authorize general manager to contract with HF&H consultants for the drought water rate structure study. With that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Do you have a question? No, I have no questions.
Just a picky question on the on attachment A, budget, projected budget. Under task 3, develop drought rate structure. Am I correct in assuming that it should add straight across the total hours, so that 26 hours from the project manager, 40 hours from the financial analyst, so it should be 66 hours there rather than 46?
That's right.
Okay. But it adds, I assume it adds, the 12,320 figure is accurate.
Well, we should confirm that. I can see, it's a task 3.4 that we added. It was a board workshop. This is slightly different from the original scope that we worked up. And in talking with the general manager, he wanted to have a workshop in there, and it looks like we've, I can check this right now just to confirm.
Yeah, I didn't do the hourly rate times the hours to check it myself, so.
But we'll confirm that. I think we've also, we introduced, we made some other changes. I'll check all of these hours. We added some additional time up front to work with the staff, and I think that's well spent because it'll, I think, help us narrow our focus and really concentrate on what needs to be done, and it'll speed things up towards the end.
These were some changes that I requested to the original proposal. I tell all consultants that I would much rather have put the additions to the scope in early on, rather than having to come back to the board and ask for additional budget.
No change orders.
You know, it looks like the hours are adding up for us individually, and it's the total.
I think, as I do it, I think the dollars are correct. It was just a spreadsheet formula that didn't add the hours right, but, so it should be 66 hours
Yeah.
going
No,
on. Okay,
right, yeah.
yeah, I think that adds right financially.
I think that's it. That's it.
Are we getting any benefit from your prior work with other water districts?
You sure are, yeah. You know,
Because it seems to me once you kind of develop a template, you just kind of, I mean, there can't be that many variations.
no, you're right, there aren't that many variations. There are a lot of assumptions that are involved, and then there are the specific facts, you know, in each district. We earlier, well, in 2014 now, back in 2013, we worked with Marine Municipal Water District. We had 6 workshops with their board in just kind of critiquing and reviewing their rate structure. They're considering going on to just a budget-based rate structure, which is a form of, really, it's another form of drought rate structure. And I think, you know, what we're seeing today that is different from, let's say, in the last drought, the end of the 80s and the early 1990s, the technology that is available right now to get customer billing data and evaluate alternatives and test the sensitivity of making assumptions. You know, for example, if you wanted to, you could just import lot sizes from the tax rolls and come up with individualized allocations for outside water use. If you wanted to go to that level of detail, that's about as far as you can take it. So there are a limited number of alternatives, and they range from fairly simple to, you know, fairly complex if you were to use all of, let's say, the lot size data.
But I'm relative to how much you're charging us. I mean, you're not starting at zero in that you have developed a formula in working with other agencies, and we are getting the benefit of your having looking at work for our neighbor to the north.
Yeah, that's right. You know, the general calculus really for going through budget-based rates involves an inside allocation and then an outside allocation. The inside allocation, as Kathleen just mentioned, you know, she's been monitoring what the water use is in gallons per capita per day. That's just base information, and that's available right now. And to the extent that there is information that has already been analyzed, you know, we can take advantage of that also. So this is a budget estimate, and any work that the staff has already done or that they can help us with going forward can also, you know, help hold our costs down. Depending on, you know, which alternative I think you'll have to go with. If it's the more data intensive, you know, it does require more effort by somebody, either district staff.
But you are bringing a model to the table, to a starting point.
Yeah, yeah. And the model is, it's actually, we've been working with North Coast County Water District for over, I guess, 11 or 12 years. And over the last couple of years, they were interested in looking at water budget-based rates, and we've done a pilot study for them. And a lot of that information can be brought to bear here.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's where that was going. Okay.
It's very interesting to see, you know, what your customers are doing independent of a drought. You know, some customers with extremely high use, and you can just at your desk, you can just Google street views and check out what's going on, and, you know, sure enough, there might be a house with just one person living there, very high water use, and you go into Google Street View and their house is surrounded by just a moat of lawn. So there's no mystery there. So when you're trying to get the public outreach information out to folks, lawns use a lot of water. You know, there's something to be said about trying to shrink that law enforcement.
We got rid of ours.
Thanks. Can our software handle it?
Another issue entirely.
Yeah. Well, I had to throw that out there.
It's outside of his scope in any case.
All right. Do we,
Want a motion?
sure.
Yeah, we need to get ahead of the curve on this, so.
I'll move staff recommendation.
I'll second that.
All right. Join,
Sure.
rolls.
Director Glassberg,
Yes, aye.
Vice President Michelson.
Yes.
Director Flint,
Aye.
Director Cavalier is absent, President Reynolds.
Aye. Do you have an honorary fireman suit?
Jeez.
Hat.
Well, I'm sure,
Do we get a souvenir hat?
yeah, I'm sure you're wondering.
Do you bill a fire department for water use?
No.
Giving us the opportunity to meet in these lovely new facilities. I thought it would be of interest to the board and helpful just to kind of go through some of what has happened and, more importantly, what we see in the coming months. We had a fire on January 22nd. Some of you have been in here and seen the kind of the near-term consequences of that. Wasn't much of a fire, but it did destroy all of our computer server equipment. And the building filled with smoke. The firemen said when they got here they couldn't see a foot inside the building. So the entire building filled with smoke, and that deposited a layer of soot on everything from the light fixtures to the carpets. And really it's the smoke damage that mandates kind of a major cleanup of the building. And so our efforts over the last couple of weeks have really focused on moving the staff into less affected areas of the building. We took out the carpet in the boardroom and moved all the front office staff into the boardroom, walled off the area that was closest to that back room where the servers were and where the worst of the damage occurred. Actually, that's given us kind of an efficient setup. And one of the main differences is that my office, since my office is a hallway now, I know what's going on in the front office. It's been quite an education. That's really where a lot of the interaction of the district with its customers takes place. It's pretty interesting. You know, we are like Mayberry. People come in with their families and their children and their dogs to pay their bills and ask about water conservation and, you know, just anything you can imagine. So, and you know, a lot of them are just lonely and come in to chat. So it's been a real education for me. One of the things I'd really like to recognize in talking with the board about this is just the professionalism of our staff. It's unbelievable how people just pitched in and responded. I was down here at 4 a.m. I think, and shortly John Davis and Logan Duffy were right here. Logan unwittingly ran into the back of the building when it was filled with smoke. He didn't even know what was going on. But the efforts of our staff, and especially Gina, have been amazing over the last 3 weeks. Not only have we done all of this and sort of managed all of the response, but we have really kept up the business of the district. Our field operations weren't too affected. Within 3 days, we had recovered 100% of our computer data. And so after having the fire Wednesday morning, by the next Monday, we're ready to do business, but we stayed closed a couple of days so that we could close off that affected area and keep our customers from wandering in there. So we're making it safer for the public that comes in all the time. So really within 3 days, we're pretty much ready to go back to work, and we haven't, other than a delay of a week or so in reading meters. I gave you a picture of what our meter readers look like. They look like something Salvador Dali would have liked. Those got cleaned up and they actually work. They're pretty robust devices. So other than a delay of about a week in reading the meters, we've been able to continue normal operations of the district. Our costs so far, just in responding, have exceeded $100,000. It's expensive to get all this stuff done. We're assuming that all of that will be paid by insurance, although we haven't received any insurance checks. We've had the insurance adjuster here. We will be moving into this modular building, what do you call these, trailers, whatever. We're going to be moving in here. We will open the offices here on February 24th. Everything will get moved, computers and everything will get moved over that weekend, and on Monday the 24th we'll be doing business out of these offices, and we'll have moved all the people and their essential furniture and files and so forth out of the building. We've got a storage container out here that's going to house the rest of the furniture and other things we use less that has to be moved out of the office. So we will vacate the building for the cleanup process. And the cleanup process will involve, at a minimum, all new carpets, cleaning all the walls. Basically, everything that was affected by the smoke will have to be replaced or cleaned. Ceiling tiles will have to be replaced in the high part of our front office, and the ceiling in there. The adjuster felt like that we have a popcorn ceiling in there that's filled with soot and would probably have to be removed and replaced. Anything like that you leave in, there's just this, over time, just a kind of a soot fall that occurs, and that we don't want. So there really is a major cleanup project that will be coming within the next month or two in the building. And we assume that will all be covered by the JPIA insurance that we have. And this always happens this always happens after fire. I lived in the Oakland Hills when we had the Oakland fire, and a lot of neighbors, we didn't lose our house, but lots of neighbors did, and there was, the houses that came back in were pretty different. I think at a time when we need to vacate the building and do a major project on it, it's a good idea for us to see whether there are reasonable modifications we could make to what's a 40-year-old building that better fit the district's way of doing business today and would better fit what we anticipate in the next, say, 10 or 20 years, given that it might be 40 years till we have this opportunity again. So we've retained a local architect, John Evans, some of you may know him, to do an inventory of our functions in the building and to look at how the space might be reconfigured to work more efficiently. And today he spent a lot of the day here interviewing all of the staff about their needs and about customer service interactions, about the communication between the field people and the office staff. So all of us think that the office could be designed to work a little bit more efficiently. We don't have an idea of what that would cost yet. It wouldn't be inexpensive, but the insurance is paying for all of the costs of a significant part of that project, which is moving everybody out and recarpeting, repainting, things like that. So I anticipate that at the March meeting we'll come back with a needs assessment and some discussion of options for reconfiguring the building. For example, we don't have an office. Should we decide that we need a district engineer, which has been Director Coverdell's favorite idea for some years, or an assistant manager for finance, which is one of my pet concepts. Should we decide that the district needs another position, and over the next 10 or 20 years, I think it's a certainty that we'll need some more positions. There's no place in the building for those people to have an office in the same kind of a mode that we operate in now. So we don't want to let our building dictate the structure of the organization. Should be the other way around. So we'll have at the March meeting, we'll have some, I think what'll be some interesting and really good ideas about that. Changing the way that we interact with our customers, for instance. Now they can, we have this big open office and people who walk in can walk anywhere. If you go to North Coast, for instance, they've done a really good job of kind of making a little lobby. It's like, you know, it's like City Hall. You can't just walk in, you can't just walk into City Hall and go back into the offices. So we're looking at different ways that we might restructure some of our office space, and we'll have something to discuss with the board at the March meeting, some specific suggestions, and hopefully some ideas about what the costs would be.
I have a question, if I may. It won't hit us next year, but if I remember how JPAs work, our premiums are based on an XMOD factor that usually is 2 years down the road before it kicks in, and a major claim that's $300,000 to $400,000 could very well impact our P&L premiums. And just a thought that not so much for this coming budget coming up, but the one after that, we might want to be considering adding some more money in that pot.
Right, we don't have those numbers.
Right.
And we haven't had it, we've had very limited experience in filing claims. Our deductible is $2,500. It's a risk pool of water agencies, so it shouldn't be the same as dealing with an insurance company. It ought to be a little bit friendlier. And but you're right, our rates, we could expect that our rates will go up.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
Good day.
Okay. It's that time of year again, time for the budget. Seems like we just do one and it's time to turn around.
6 months of the year it's that.
And do the next one. No, that's close. So we present, as we usually do in February, the fiscal year 2014-15 budget process timeline. In the near term, I think week after next, we have meetings of the Facilities and Finance Committee scheduled already. And our first presentation of the budget and the capital improvement program will be at the March regular board meeting. So we have quite a bit of work to do between now and then. And we'll have this, in this year's cycle, we'll have this challenge of asking our customers for reduction, asking our customers to buy less water from us. That will be one of the interesting factors in this year's budget, as will the effects of the fire and opportunities we may have there. But this is the schedule, and we usually have the board approve, acknowledge it. It leads up to the rate increase hearing. And it's no secret we're going to have a rate increase. We've had a pretty consistent pattern of rate increases. Don't know, last year we had a 7% rate increase, which was lower than what we had projected in earlier years. I don't have a prediction of this year's rate increase, but we introduced kind of the magnitude and the model for the rate increase in March, and the board has a number of opportunities to look at the budget and explore the capital improvement program. And we try to get our customers in here to engage in the budget process in a positive way. That they largely haven't taken an interest, but sometimes we get people who really don't like any kind of an increase, so we hear from them. But we have the public hearing in the June meeting, and the rate increase generally goes into effect July 1st. If we get a notice from San Francisco that they anticipate drought allocations beginning July 1st, the schedule will change. I think we'll kind of be in panic mode in terms of getting our drought rates together, and you know, we'll switch from this deliberate planned process that we're used to into something a little more oriented toward the drought emergency. So the schedule would look a little bit different, and we'd probably kind of switch over to that process. We've talked about a lot of the focus of our schedule is making sure that we have sufficient time to comply with the Proposition 218 requirements before the rates go into place. So there's a minimum 45-day notice time for Proposition 218, and so that we need about 60 days between when you approve the notice and when we have the public hearing. Generally, that's about how it works. If we go into allocations for a drought emergency, our drought rates will still have to comply with Proposition 218. So we've been having some discussions about, you know, do we want to do separate processes? Could we combine those 218 processes? So a lot could develop between now and July 1st in terms of how we look at our rates. We've really got our fingers crossed that there's enough rain and the storage in San Francisco's system will be sufficient to get us by for the next coming fiscal year, at least for part of it. So, and we'll learn more about that from San Francisco Thursday of this week when we have our annual meeting, our annual wholesale customers meeting. Water supply projections will be a major focus of their presentation, I think. A lot of people are interested in it right now. So that is the budget process timeline. And we recommend that the board approve it.
Do we need a motion on that, or
Sure.
just a?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll move to approve the budget timeline for 14-15.
I'll second that.
We'll do a yeas, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So moved.
Okay, next up is Munis Utility Water System and Pressure Vessel. And I'll let Joe give you the history of this project.
Yeah, at the water treatment plant is at a high point in the district, and so there's no water that actually flows to it that's potable that can be used. We have to pressurize the water at the treatment plant. The plant has undergone a number of changes. We've reduced the amount of water that we actually need to use for the processings. And the processings that I'm talking about include assistance in the backwash to wash the filters, and most importantly, carrier water for chemical injection, so that the chemicals are injected evenly and consistently in the process. We've reduced this amount of water that we need because we've have more improved systems for feeding chemicals. We've reduced some chemicals, and most significantly, we reduced the water needed for the emergency generator, and now has a radiator. Well, what this has amounted to is that we now have oversized pumps, and they come on and come off quite quickly, up to 6 times an hour, or well, no, more than 6 times an hour. What did I have here? Once every 5 minutes. What is that?
3 times?
Yeah, that's a lot. So in any event, the pumps we've had to replace the motors twice since I've been here. The pumps are outmoded. There's nobody that would really support them if they do fail, and then it would be quite an engineering feat to add a different style pump in there. So, and in addition, in order to make this process work, there's a hydro-pneumatic tank, and it was quite a large hydro-pneumatic tank that is failing also. The last time our insurance adjusters came through, we did some tests on that tank, and we found that one of the walls are below the recommended thickness. Hydropneumatic tanks have been in the news lately since one exploded up in the northern part of the state in recent history, and it actually killed someone. These things can be dangerous. So our JPIA has advised that we replace it. So we went out to bid for this in 2012 based on some specifications that our engineer Jim Teeter had established. We only got one bid, and it was for $80,000, and it was quite a complex system. We rather go simple. So we got back together with Jim Teeter and Pump Repair Service Company, who does a lot of work for us. And we've come up with a simpler design that utilizes two variable frequency drive pumps so that we could go low, so we don't have to start and stop pumps so often. We could keep one pump running full time without ever stopping and starting, which is much better for the pump and the motor than starting and stopping many times per hour. We got a bid for this from Pump Repair, and it was for $70,000. Originally, when we embarked on this, we've been going back and forth on this for 5 years now. The estimate for this was $40,000, which was it's lower than what it's turning out to be, as you can see from our first attempt at this and from the second attempt at it. It's a complex system that requires a lot of coordination. Plus, now we need a new tank. So we have a very good, viable, simple design that'll come in at $70,000, $71,000. So what we are asking is that you authorize the GM to execute a contract with Pump Repair for this work.
I'll just address a question that came up regarding sole source procurement. Our procurement regulations, which are in resolution, I think 2012-01, have some sole source provisions, one of which says that the general manager can proceed with a sole source procurement if competition is determined to be insufficient to get multiple bids, and that was clearly the case with our original bidding process. Only one came in, so this has essentially been a process and a project developed through negotiation involving Pump Repair Service and staff. So it is a sole source procurement, but it fits within the allowed scope of sole source procurement. It doesn't require that the board waive the existing procurement rules.
Who were the groups that declined to bid?
One of them was we actually invited some companies to bid. We invited Pump Repair. We invited there was a company out of Auburn, I believe it is. I'm not exactly sure what. And Calcon. Calcon came in with the $80,000 bid.
Okay. Oakville Pump just did a job just like this. That's why I was kind of curious, because it's right up their alley.
Oakville Pump?
Yeah.
Out of Oakville?
As a matter of fact, they are.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, yeah, it's, yeah, I just toured it, so.
How much was?
I was hoping you weren't gonna ask me that, I don't remember. But it was all stainless steel, and, it doesn't look like you're doing stainless. Yeah, they did it in stainless, which was what caught my eye, because it was gorgeous.
About 25,000 of the cost is installation. The installation is not really simple. It involves having to set up a temporary pumping system to enable them they'll keep the plant in operation before they can demolish and replace the existing pumps.
Is there an estimate on electrical control work?
we're not, it's gonna be minimal, since this is a skid mounted unit, it's basically turnkey. It'd just be a matter of getting, one of the local electricians just to hook it up for a minimum cost.
Okay.
It has its own control panel.
That's, okay, that's good, because the control part
Right.
can get very expensive.
And we're not going to, there's not gonna be a lot of bells and whistles attached to the SCADA system. Probably just one alarm function.
Okay. Good, thanks.
I got a question. How long did the old tank last? I mean, before they determined that?
84, so that's 30 years.
So the projected life of the new tank would probably be at least that?
About the same.
Yeah. Okay.
That's impressive. From a legal perspective, should whatever motion is made to approve this, assuming one is, include some language that says as a sole source bid?
In discussions with your general manager earlier today, and he correctly cited the policy, and what he said will be reflected in the minutes, because your policy requires that it be documented. So I don't think it needs to be included in the recommendation, but we will be sure that it's reflected in the minutes, which is what.
That's what I was concerned about, was documenting that.
But
it's a sole source.
if we send it out to 3 vendors and only 1 bid, isn't that low bid?
This was not low bid. So the last time this was bid, you only received 1 bid and you didn't award the contract, is my understanding. So this was,
I understand.
we just went
Okay.
forward with
Okay.
one,
With the one bidder
bidder.
and changed the project and then they forward.
that's my understanding.
Okay, I think if we have
The
a
project has changed since then anyway, since the
Okay.
news that we should replace the tank.
And we're confident that the changes in the project wouldn't elicit more bids if we were to go back out?
The original spec it was somewhat more complicated. This is a simple design. By pump repair, so I'm not exactly sure how to answer that question. I mean, we could go out again. But it would take a lot more time.
We don't have any basis to be confident about that.
I think
We didn't do it.
the only concern I have is that Grundfos and Goulds have a 50% markup for the reseller. So it gives them an awful lot of wiggle room, to make bids competitive. So it's just frustrating to not have them competing in that venue. It is what it is.
Glenn, I didn't understand that. Could you explain that to me, please?
So the resellers, of which Pump Repair Service buys this equipment for $20,000 from Grundfos. You can look at that and go, that's $20,000. That's what their discount is as a reseller. And so,
There's wiggle room, yeah.
yeah, so the beauty of being and having several companies compete is they cut into that margin to get the job. And so, in this case, but, what are you gonna,
Just to be clear, this first page is the temporary system.
right,
and the
for
installation.
24,000,
Yeah, the installation,
Yeah, the
on
pump is
second-
for,
the-
it's
the
$3,000.
pump itself is
Yeah.
a Grundfos.
Yeah, and that's $3,000. Then the second one, we have the package,
This is
the booster
skid,
package.
The skid package.
Yeah, and that's $40,000. And that's the one where it's just, ouch, it would have been nice to have gotten. But in my experience, we would have seen maybe a 10% cut on that, so it's not a huge.
Good information, that's good to know, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, the significant cost is the whole rigmarole we have to go with keeping the plant online and putting a temporary system
Yeah.
up there that is dependable, so that we could operate through this whole, process of, removal of the old system and installation of the new. We can't really shut down this for any long period of time.
I've been pretty pleased with the Grundfos packages, so. I'll make a move, we accept it.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Jen, you can go home now.
I want to turn the page. Sorry, I'll let you count the next one, but I wanted to turn the page. All right.
And I'm gonna revise my guess, I'd say 12 times an hour.
Yes, that's very good, thank you.
Dave, do you want to introduce the
Okay,
LAFCO?
this next one concerns naming alternates to serve in the absence of our board president at official LAFCO sessions. What we tried to do is, as the staff report explains, what we tried to do was say, well, the board president is generally our representative to LAFCO. We need to specifically designate alternates if we want alternates. So what we've done in the past is designate all of the other board members as alternates, just so that any one of our board members could attend a LAFCO meeting and cast the district's vote. And so LAFCO advises that rather than just saying the president is the representative and all the other directors are alternates, LAFCO prefers that we name the alternates. That's what the purpose of this item is. We also want to call your attention to the fact that on March 4th, there's a LAFCO meeting of the Special District Selection Committee. There are two Special District members on the Local Agency Formation Commission, and they're appointed by the special districts. Last time there was an election, it was conducted by mail, basically. This time it will be a meeting at which nominations will be made and the representative will be elected at that meeting.
Do you have a date for that
March 4th.
meeting?
March 4th.
For the 4th of March. It's the next page. on our-
So
Are you available? I don't wanna go.
Do you want to go?
No, I don't know what I'm saying. I'll go if I had to, but somebody should go, but.
Yeah.
So we'll send out a reminder, and it's a good idea for us to participate, I think, and LAFCO needs to achieve a quorum of the special districts in the county in order to conduct this process. So the board action that we need or that we recommend is that the board appoint member representative alternates to participate in San Mateo Local Agency Formation Commission election of officers, and that would be, I think if you just make that motion, we can fill in the names.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we adopt the board members as alternates.
I'll second.
By name.
Should we do it by name?
Well, but you could just say by name.
By name,
when you
sure.
fill them
By
out, 'cause I
name.
think that's what they want, right?
Board
Right.
members by name. That's right, because that is what they want, by
Yeah.
name. That's all right. Joanne will make up the names at a later date. Joanne, could you call the roll for this?
Did we get a second on that motion?
I second.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Director Glassford,
Aye.
Vice President
Yes.
Michelson, Director Flint,
Aye.
Director Coverdell is absent, President
Aye.
Rice. Thank you. Go on to practice on
Isn't it tradition that we name the guy that's not here to serve?
Yeah, they serve cookies at the meeting.
Oh, then forget about it.
Well, then we'll fight for it.
Yeah. All right. Dave, you're on again.
Me still.
Yeah, well,
Okay, we arrive at the general manager's report. I have some kind of interesting developments. One or two are somewhat related. This first item came as a real surprise to Nicole Sankula, and I'm sure everybody else in the Bosca world. Its new status came as a surprise. And I watched the tape of some of this meeting of the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. But on January 8th, the staff told the commission that Mountain Tunnel, which is a 19-mile long tunnel through mainly rock in the Sierras that goes from, this is part of the Hetch Hetchy conveyance system that was built in the 1920s, early 1920s. It's a 19-mile tunnel that goes from Kirkwood Powerhouse down to Moccasin. It's the only way that Hetch Hetchy water can, it's a sole pipe, there's no way to go around it. And they have 2 engineering assessments now that say that it's possible that this tunnel could fail catastrophically. And the way that happens, I think, is that the mortar lining starts to fail, comes off, and as it fails, the force of the water takes even more of it off, and ultimately it jams up. Well, this tunnel has been losing flow capacity, which is an indication of problems. In the irony, I think, of this revelation, and I guess there's some history behind it, but the irony of this revelation is we collectively, San Francisco and the wholesale users, have just spent $4.6 billion in order to ensure that after an earthquake, water service could be restored to the Bay Area could be restored within 24 hours. So we've addressed all of the places where this system crosses major fault lines, so that we can tell our customers, and our share, I estimate our district's share of that capital commitment at about $37 million, so a big chunk of change even for CCWD. And what we have told our customers is this was an investment in making this system this reliable within 24 hours. Now we learn about a piece of the San Francisco system whose failure could wipe out 85% of the water supply for 9 months. There is no workaround for this thing. In 2005, when they were putting together projects for the WISIP, for the Water System Improvement Program, Mountain Tunnel was regarded as a maintenance project and budgeted. They have it in their they had it in their capital program at $115 million or something like that. Kind of, you know, penny ante stuff for the regional water system. The new estimate is $655 million.
Big chunk.
Right. The only solution, according to the engineers they've talked to, or the preferred solution, is a totally new tunnel that would bypass. So you can imagine the cost of building a 19-mile tunnel in the Sierra. So this is a really, I mean, to me, this is a really big deal. What would we tell our customers if all of a sudden we have to cut back 85% for 9 months? It would be disastrous. And you know, it really raises issues, I think, about how we as wholesale customers, 1.6 million of the 2.4 million people served by this system, have a say in how it's maintained. So this is a very interesting and complicated issue for SFPUC, and so I've attached the letter that Nicole Sankula, the CEO of Bosca, wrote to the commission, or the chairman of the commission, demanding some answers about this mountain tunnel problem. But it's potentially a very significant issue for everyone who uses this water system.
Excuse me, Dave, the letter was not attached to
Oh.
the PDF.
Oh, okay. Well, I meant to attach it. My intention was to. But basically, Nicole asked 5 questions. How are you going, when are you going to do it? You know, what's your plan? The other interesting thing about this meeting on January 8th, and I had never heard this before, the San Francisco financial people, in the context of discussing how this would be paid for, used the term fiscal cliff. They don't have, the Mountain Tunnel is a shared facility, water, 45% water system, 55% power system. So even if we as the wholesale user said you gotta fix it, we only pay for 45%. That other 55% has to come out of their power side, and that's tied into their general fund. And they don't have the money. They don't have the money, and they don't have the revenue coverage to borrow the money. So this is a significant problem that I'm sure we'll be hearing more about. But you know, I thought it was I think everybody should know about it, because boy, would we be blindsided by a failure of this, after having invested so much on system reliability, to have now, this major vulnerability revealed, I think is of great concern. And it really raises questions about how we work with San Francisco, and that kind of takes me to the next item, which is our meeting with Bosca. On January 30th, Director Michelson and I met with Nicole Sankula and a strategic consultant that Bosca has worked with ever since Bosca was formed. The ostensible agenda was to talk about the Bosca current fiscal year work plan, but it really became a discussion of, well, where is Bosca going, and what is in it for our district. Bosca is a very important organization for us, collectively as wholesale customers of San Francisco. It's only through Bosca right now that we're able to exert the kind of influence that we have over things that San Francisco does. We serve collectively 1.6 million customers, but we don't have a single vote for a single commissioner or for the mayor who appoints the commissioner. So you can imagine how responsive the SFPUC can be to us in the absence of some real involvement from Bosca. So Bosca's, as Chris mentioned, Bosca's in an interesting time. They have this important traditional role of representing us in our relationship with San Francisco. And things like this mountain tunnel point out how important that is to us. But they also have a strategy which they haven't really talked about a lot, but a strategy to do the things that San Francisco hasn't done as a regional water utility. And one of the main things is to find water. So San Francisco has let us know that they're not going to go looking, our water purchases from them are capped, and they're not going to go looking for any other water to serve our needs. So who's going to do that? Do we do that as individual agencies, or do we do it with and through Bosca? And Bosca is kind of, starting to do various aspects of what a regional utility would do. Although, we had some questions about how they would get to that point given Bosca's governance structure. So we had a really free-ranging discussion with Bosca. I think that the challenge of running Bosca has increased since we focused on this renegotiation of the water supply agreement that was finished in 2009. That was Art Jensen's that was his masterpiece, that renegotiated agreement that did so much for the wholesale agencies. Now this is a new phase in our relationship in our mutually dependent and challenging relationship with San Francisco that Bosca will continue to play a role in. So that was a good discussion. Didn't get all the answers we wanted, but I'm sure Nicole heard a few things that she wasn't necessarily expecting to hear from us either.
Yeah, I was real pleased that she took the time to go out and visit. There's 26 of us, and they were taking notes. We brought up a few concerns, and their pen was moving quite rapidly on their notepads. I mean, I think they took each and every one of our concerns to heart, and behind the scenes, they are doing more than appears on the surface, and that was what I alluded to earlier. It's on the surface, it's a lot of 26 or however many members show up to Bosca, rarely a dissenting vote. So it just seems a little perfunctory there, but behind the scenes, a lot is going on, and they really are our advocate. And it was nice to see that the torch passed from Art to Nicole, and it was a very, very seamless passing of the torch. I mean, she'd been there since I came on board in 2001, so she has a lot of years, a lot of experience, and well respected, and their strategic council, very interesting, great background, and it was a real pleasure to be in the room with him and hear his side of how to proceed in dealing with San Francisco. San Francisco is, if you follow the news, interesting governance up there, to say the least.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and then finally, I want to just give you, for those of you who may have been wondering, the status of the Denniston-San Vicente Draft Environmental Impact Report. We decided, I think it was in November, when we had the draft pretty much ready, we decided that it had not sufficiently addressed the question of groundwater, the groundwater balance, which our hydrology consultants, Balance Hydrologics, had raised on behalf of Montero Water and Sanitary District. So I said, well, you know, we need a groundwater technical memo that addresses the question of whether our proposed project will affect the supply of groundwater available to Montero, or affect in a negative way the health of Pillar Point Marsh. Those have been kind of the key criteria. So with great reluctance, since Balance Hydrologics has produced everything on a schedule of about 3 times the desired duration, we went back to Balance. We actually tried to go to somebody else. We tried to go to Kleinfelder. Kleinfelder has done some significant studies for the county, and the people that had authored the studies at Kleinfelder had moved on, and I found the principal author of the Kleinfelder study, and his advice was stick with Balance, because you know it would take us so long to come in and figure this whole thing out. It's highly technical. Anyway, so I was on the phone, you know, a couple of times a week with Balance, saying, when are you going to have this report out? That continued for a month. We got it on January 22nd, and we expected we'd have it early December. We got it on January 22nd. It is full of good technical information, but needed to be reformatted in order to present just the technical information we'd like in our administrative record. So, as with most of the subcontract products that have been incorporated into the EIR, we're doing some significant strategic editing under the tutelage of our water rights attorney, Alan Lilly. So we're in the midst of that process. We have another meeting scheduled the 1st of March, and then this thing really should be ready to issue. I think the good news about the work that Balance has done is that there's no way that we can see that they will end up on the other side of the table from us as expert witnesses in a challenge brought by Montero Water and Sanitary District based on the groundwater supply. So that's good. And that was really one of our primary motivations for going with Balance was we didn't want dueling technical experts. These guys really are experts on the hydrology of Montero Mountain, and they've been Montero's consultants for a long time. And they've done despite the challenges we've had with them, I think they've done a good job, and I think they're technically very fastidious. You know, they're very exacting, and that's one of the reasons that these products have taken so long. They really look at every aspect of the problem. So that's this EIR has been a long time coming, but we think we're getting close, and then we'll just see how it goes with the challenges, if any. But a time of limited water supply is a good time to be talking about local water sources and the role they can play. We have an excellent local water source in Denniston and San Vicente, and through this entire process, which is now extended over, I guess, 3 years, there's never been a point at which the analysis we've done and the data we have collected, we've collected a lot of data, have indicated that this isn't a project we should not continue to pursue. This is a project we shouldn't continue to pursue. You know, we've always assumed that it would be that would really benefit the district to develop the San Vicente source. That's what we're investing a lot in, and there's been nothing that would give us pause in that regard. So that's the part that I feel positive about. I think the EIR, when it comes out, there are going to be a lot of issues, fisheries issues, water issues, but ultimately I think it'll support our position that there is water available to us, and that our diversions will not, won't adversely affect the other public resources or agencies that depend on those waters. So, more to come on that. Whenever I predict, I told Director Michelson the last time when he asked that I thought it was going to be out in late January, but I'm here
Well,
today saying
they're not asking for
not
more
quite.
money, are they?
Not yet.
I did that one. Well, I'm glad to hear the optimistic part. Good things do take a while. So.
And this is, I've said all along, this is a long-term effort. We started in Denniston in 1971, 72. We got our water rights permit, the one that we're working on now, we got it in we applied in, I think, 1968 and got the water rights permit in 1969. So the current process for those uninitiated is an extension, a petition for extension of time of that original water right permit. And should we be successful, our time to perfect our water rights would be extended until December 31st, 2016, which in 2003, when we applied for the extension, seemed like a pretty, far out there time horizon. Now it's starting to look a little closer, a lot closer. So
We look forward to
we have a number of steps ahead of us before we'll actually be able to start construction on some of the key features of this project, including coastal development permits. So these issues will be we can assume will be thoroughly vetted at a number of stages, and we'll get plenty of input from all of the affected agencies. And with that, was that good news or bad news? I don't know. Interesting news.
Actually, we got the report, so I'd call it good news. It showed up.
and it supported our position.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's,
So,
that's
yeah,
good.
no,
I'll see that as good news.
we're making progress. Joe?
Okay, highlights of last month. We were able to flush the entire greater downtown Half Moon Bay area from Main Street at Highway 1 to Main Street at Highway 1. With hardly any complaints of water quality concern, or even there were a couple of low pressure complaints, but that's to be expected when flushing. But I was really pleased that we did not get any water quality complaints during the process, and that's mainly because of the way we were doing it, which is quite efficient, and the crews were quite adept at it. Very proud of them. We got Denniston started up for one day in January, or a couple days in January. We ran into a couple of little technical problems which should be solved this week. We should be up and running by the end of the week, if not sooner. What else can I say? El Granada Tank 2 is coming along. They did find some things, as they always do, in the tank. And it's a good thing they found it, because the tank shell at the bottom where it hits the chine was weak, It was very thin. When they were welding the chime on there, it was just blowing right through the wall. And that could be catastrophic. So it's a good thing we found that, and it's a good thing that we're fortifying that. Again, there were some rafter issues. These change orders are small, or less than they were for the other tanks that we have done, where we've encountered similar problems. The Avenue Cabrillo project phase 2 is complete, much to the happiness of the neighbors. And if there's anything else in here that you'd like for me to report on, or if you have any questions, I'm glad to answer the best I can.
What's going on at Denison?
Denniston,
Yeah, it's raining. Why can't we use it?
we're gonna use it this week. The operational system for the contact clarifiers is somewhat proprietary, and we now have a nexus between Roberts Filter, who is the manufacturer of that, and Calcon, so that Calcon can now go in, who is our IT people. They can go in there, repair the system or fix the glitches without any problems with the warranty. We just got that garnered today. We're going in there tomorrow, and we're going to start it up, and we're going to run it at least 400 gallons per minute.
Because this was the first significant rain event since we brought that thing online, and we brought that thing online quite a while ago. So I'm really curious to see how much turbidity that thing can handle. Can it handle as advertised, as we anticipated?
We're anxious to see that too. The turbidity was high. I know it was up to 50,
And
if
were we
not a little
operating
higher
it?
for a brief moment. Well, now that period doesn't last that long.
Right.
Now it's down within a reasonable
Yeah,
range.
but-
And before January, there just wasn't any water in there. So
Yeah, so I'm curious to see
Yeah.
this thing run through a rain.
once the water came, we jumped into formation there, and we're getting it going.
$7 million.
We're anxious to get it going. We really are anxious to get it going.
I'm very anxious myself too.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks.
It's Sean's top priority.
Good. Okay, good. No, yeah, I'm sure he's on it. Yeah, don't doubt that.
Do we have any requests for future board meetings?
I just have a question. Do we have one on the calendar for 2 weeks from now?
The 28th, 25th, I'm sorry.
25th, right, because
Right.
20th is the finance
Right.
committee. And that's
The
still on
board-
the calendar.
The board gave us direction to schedule 2 board meetings for discussion of water shortage contingency planning. One on, what was it, January 28th? That got interrupted by our little fire adventure, but provided that the board is still interested in having that drought planning work session, that's still on our calendar.
Good.
And that would be 3 o'clock, what we said it would be 3 o'clock on the 25th.
Figure out where we were going.
Right. Right, we should mention, thank you, Joanne, we should mention that since we're going to be moving in here over the weekend of the 22nd and 23rd, and we won't be able to use the boardroom in there, we've arranged to use the boardroom at Cabrillo Unified School District for the next 6 meetings or so, until we're able to meet in our own building. So they've been very cooperative in making that arrangement for us. But in that process, we've come to appreciate how great it is to have our own boardroom. Joanne has done a lot of work to try to line up a neutral venue. We don't want to use hotel rooms or anything like that. So we will be, and we'll give everybody plenty of notice. We'll be meeting over there at the school district.
Good, thank you.
For the
This
25th?
meeting on the 25th,
Yes.
Dave, do we have?
Do we have a venue for that?
No.
I'll have to figure that out, yeah.
We don't have it.
3 o'clock on the 25th may be a bit of a problem, but we may be able to set up folding chairs over there in our building.
Yeah, we might be able to
Yeah.
use
The lobby or something?
Right.
Yeah.
It's, the atmosphere in there has gotten a lot better over the last couple of weeks. It still kinda hits you when you come in the back door, but nothing like it was.
Anything else?
If you need something, I've got.
On the 25th.
Yeah, so, I mean, I won't be, if you wanted me there, I don't know if you need me there for this one or not, to talk about the legal requirements. It would need to be a little earlier,
All right, we'll talk about that.
yeah.
Resolve.
With no further comments, we'll close the meeting.
Adjourned.